Thank you, members of the media, and to our listening population tuned in via YouTube, Facebook, and other online platforms. Welcome to our weekly Sunday morning press conference. I'm joined here with Senator Anil Roberts, who will be dealing with several issues along with myself. So I say to each and every one of you, a very good morning. Ladies and gentlemen, we, as a loyal opposition, continue to do our duty that has been mandated to us, which is to be the checks and balances of this PNM government. We continue to demand from this government transparency and accountability, and we continue to defend the rights of the citizens of Trinidad and Tobago, to defend the democracy of our nation as set out in our Constitution, and to defend the constitutional rights of every citizen of Trinidad and Tobago, regardless of political persuasion. And as such, ladies and gentlemen, we've come here to deal with issues that have become important in the domain today. And myself and Senator Roberts will deal with several issues. I intend to present today several issues. Firstly, the government's purchase of 2 Cape-class vessels from Hostal, which was done without the oversight of the independent Office of the Public Procurement Regulator. Therefore, there was no transparency in the more than $600 million of taxpayers' money that was committed by this government. Secondly, the mismanagement of the fleet of vessels for border security of the Coast Guard that had been purchased previous to these 2 Damien vessels. And the fact that vessels were never an issue with border security in this country after the United National Congress, led by Mrs. Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, left this country with the Coast Guard having the most modern and largest Coast Guard fleet in the English-speaking Caribbean. And thirdly, the absence of a comprehensive supporting apparatus for national security on land, air, and sea in an effort to protect our borders. Ladies and gentlemen, as of recent, for the past 6 years, we have seen a government who has lost control over our borders. Our borders have become more and more porous as the years go by under this PNM administration. We have seen the entrance of illegal immigrants. We have seen the influx of drugs and narcotics. We have seen the human smuggling, and we have seen the smuggling of guns and ammunition into this country. We see a national security apparatus that has fallen and disintegrated under the tenure of this People's National Movement. And we see the lack of resources being contributed by this government to the protective services, namely the Coast Guard, the Regiment, the Air Guard, and the Trinidad and Tobago Police Service. This government then comes 6 years later to boast and give itself self-praise about the introduction of 2 Cape-class vessels from the Hostal facility in Australia. It is the Prime Minister of this country who came to the nation on Friday the 16th of July, this last Friday, 2021, and who told the nation in essence that these 2 new Hostal vessels will be the silver bullet to fix the problem of porous borders in this country. It is the Prime Minister who came to this nation and said to the population that he could now sleep comfortably, knowing that these 2 vessels are here in the country. We saw it on Saturday's papers. No more border problems, it states. Ladies and gentlemen, I say to the population, we are happy for the Prime Minister if he could sleep good at night or more comfortably at night. But the question is, are the 1.4 million citizens in this country sleeping good at night? Because, ladies and gentlemen, for the past 6 years, this government failing to secure our borders and failing at national security has seen the influx of more than 150,000 illegal immigrants into this nation. Many of them who are now lining up to leave the country and go back to Venezuela, living in a failed PNM economy. They prefer to go back in a dictatorship Maduro failed economy. Life under Maduro to them will be better than life under this Rowley administration. And now that that he could sleep good at night, we're happy for him, but we certainly cannot sleep good at night. When we see the amount of drugs and narcotics coming through our borders, when we see the guns littering the streets of our nation, spilling the blood of our citizens in this country, we don't sleep good at night. It is this 6 years that places all of these shortcomings squarely at the feet of this PNM government, led by Keith Christopher Rowley. So we have to ask ourselves the question today, ladies and gentlemen. Why did the PNM government take 6 years to attempt to secure our borders? Especially when we know that under People's Partnership government led by the Honorable Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, back in 6 Damien vessels and a Chinese vessel was procured with the capabilities of these 2 hostile vessels that the PNM boasts about today. The PNM benefited from the delivery of these Damien vessels back in 2016 after they were procured by a Kamala Prasad-Bissessar-led government. These 6 vessels and 1 Chinese vessel, 7 in total, have been sitting down in Stobles Bay, barely used and mainly for reactionary purposes. Hundreds of millions of dollars of our taxpayers' money spent on these Damien vessels and Chinese vessels, with the capability of securing our borders and stopping the influx of illegal immigrants, drugs, ammunition, and guns. Ladies and gentlemen, it is important to note that previous to these 2 Cape-class vessels coming into Trinidad and Tobago, the Trinidad and Tobago Coast Guard had the best fleet of the English-speaking Caribbean. This was left by our UNC administration. Yet very few of these vessels are now operationalized. So we ask ourselves the question, why these 6 Damien vessels, 4 comprising of 4 patrol vessels and 2 utility vessels, all equipped with small interceptor vessels on them, so that's 6 interceptor vessels in total, all in full working condition, why were they not in operation to secure our borders? Was it malice by this government that they didn't procure these vessels? Well, we had to research, and we found 3 reasons why. Firstly, because of the government's delinquency to pay their bills to the suppliers of the special diesel used to operationalize these vessels. Because of their lack of payment, many of the suppliers cut the government off from credit and then cut them off from supply. And in addition to that, ladies and gentlemen, we understand that proper bunkering facilities were never put in place at Tetron to ensure that an adequate amount of fuel was supplied. So even when these vessels were supplied with fuel, it was ad hoc, it was sporadic, and it had these vessels working inconsistently. Secondly, ladies and gentlemen, the government failed to renew the service level agreement for these Damien vessels, to have them maintained and to have them in good condition. We understand recently that these vessels were dry docked in Suriname and that they are in full working condition today, but still the government has failed to renew the service level agreement for these 6 Damien vessels. So the question would be, would these vessels fall into disrepair again after sitting down in Stobles Bay? And thirdly, the government's failure to ensure the proper management of human resources to enable these vessels to be properly manned with trained personnel. We know that the Coast Guard has more than 1,500 members of the Coast Guard, but through poor management by this government, they have not allocated the proper human resource to man these vessels. Ladies and gentlemen, besides these Damien vessels and the Chinese vessel, the Coast Guard also has a fleet of 17 interceptor vessels. These are the vessels that are used to run down those fast drug boats. And we understand that in the last 6 years, at no point in time was there more than 6 vessels operational or in working condition. And in fact, on average, no more than 4 would be in operation. And besides that, ladies and gentlemen, they would have had 6 pirogues. So that was the fleet of vessels. Those are the resources that the Coast Guard had at its disposal, and the government allowed these vessels to sit idle and to become derelict. These failings fall squarely at the feet of the Prime Minister of this country, who is the head of the National Security Council, and who should have demanded that these vessels be kept in good condition and operationalized. So we have to ask ourselves the question, if after 6 long years that this government is not capable of fueling these vessels, of repairing and maintaining all of those vessels, and ensuring that there was proper human resource to man these vessels, we are asking ourselves the question, what is going to be different now with these 2 Cape-class vessels that require the same level of attention as the Damien vessels? These 2 Cape-class vessels will require diesel just as the Damien vessels require. In fact, we understand that the engines are fairly similar, so it is the same fuel needed. They will require routine maintenance and a service level agreement, and they will require human resources to man these boats. If the government failed to achieve this with the current fleet, how can we rest assured that the government will put the resources in place to keep these 2 new hostile vessels in operation? So, ladies and gentlemen, now we have these 2 vessels that were purchased in the still of the night by the Prime Minister and the then Minister of National Security, Stuart Young, who went down on their own to Australia and who committed more than $600 million of your taxpayers' money without the oversight or the purview of the public procurement regulator. And to this day, we are still unaware of what technical advice was given in the decision-making to purchase these 2 vessels. We also understand that the Coast Guard never requested these 2 new hostile vessels, and that they requested more interceptor vessels, ladies and gentlemen. So we asked the media, maybe we should contact the Coast Guard to find out if these 2 vessels were of urgent need. So you see, ladies and gentlemen, we have no idea about these boats and if they are spec'd properly for our waters. We have no idea if the $600 million that we spent is value for money, because there was no oversight in this procurement process. You see, ladies and gentlemen, we ask about transparency and accountability, because in the Patrick Manning PNM administration, there were 6 hostile vessels. You hear that? 6 hostile vessels that were purchased, but were not ranked number 1 in the procurement process, either for price or for capabilities, technical capabilities, that is. One can go down now, ladies and gentlemen, in Chagaramas by the anchorage, and you will see these 6 hostile vessels that are now piled up in a metal scrap heap, that are now sitting in this hostile graveyard down in Chagaramas. You can go down there and see it right now. And the reason why they are there, ladies and gentlemen, because these vessels were not fit for purpose. They were not fit for our waters. They were not fit for our conditions. And after 3 to 6 months, most of them, or all of them, became derelict, destroyed, and then were sent to the graveyard in Chagaramas. Ladies and gentlemen, we ask ourselves the question, how do we know that these 2 new hostile vessels would not be destined for this same graveyard? We sincerely hope not, because we would hope that this $600 million would be spent wisely. But the government must answer these questions, because in the last 6 years, through their negligence, mismanagement, and incompetence, they have allowed our naval fleet to remain inoperational, whilst our borders remain porous. Ladies and gentlemen and members of the media, there are other questions that the government has to answer, especially when we see the purchase of these hostile vessels were actually done in a less than transparent manner. They must answer to their statements that a grant was offered to facilitate the purchase of these hostile Cape-class vessels. Because, ladies and gentlemen, the then Minister of National Security, Stuart Young, is on record in a press conference stating, and I quote, "The Prime Minister of Australia also informed the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago that the timing was good because the Australian government had just taken a decision to have a military grant to other nations for the purchase of any military type equipment, which would include the K-class vessels from Australia. A special military grant. So therefore, the government of Australia is the entity that first alerted the Prime Minister of Trinidad and Tobago to these possibilities. Ladies and gentlemen, the Trinidad and Tobago Prime Minister, in a ministerial statement to the Parliament on Friday, the 11th of January 2009, echoed the sentiments of Minister Young. However, one only has to go to the hostile website to see that the Australian Defence Export Facility has made available a loan to the government of Trinidad and Tobago to secure the Cape-class vessels. So we want to know, a grant means a gift. It is not a loan. In other words, it's free money. That's what a grant is. So given the statements of the Minister of National Security, we now ask the following questions, ladies and gentlemen. Was a grant given to facilitate the purchase of those vessels? If so, how much of the $600 million is given in the form of a grant? TT dollars. Or did the government take a loan backed by the taxpayers of our country to pay $600 million for the two vessels that we are not even sure will be properly operationalized? Ladies and gentlemen, we in the UNC see this government coming to us with these two vessels now as mamagai. We are not against these two vessels, but the PNM had, with their usual mantra, to create a problem and then mamagai this population by bringing a weak solution. So they decimated our fleet in Chagaramas, left it sitting down idle in the Stobles Bay, had our borders open and porous, and then come to the nation after our country has been affected by the influx of illegal immigrants, the influx of the Brazilian variant that has contributed to killing more than almost 1,000, might be 1,000 today, in fact, of our citizens. When we see that, ladies and gentlemen, and then we see the Prime Minister come to us with two Cape-class vessels, we have to conclude that this is an attempt to mamagai the population. After a problem that the PNM created, they now bring to this country what they consider a solution. Because, ladies and gentlemen, we saw it in yesterday's papers in the Saturday Express, that the Prime Minister, who was flanked by the National Security Minister, and in fact, when you look at the pictures, it looked like almost every cabinet member ran down there to cut ribbon. See, now this might be the only ribbon cutting that they have done recently. We see them come down there with this pomp and pageantry and declare 6 years later that they now have the solution for our porous borders. We in the UNC state that this is a mamagai because two vessels alone cannot entirely secure the length and breadth of our borders in Trinidad and Tobago, ladies and gentlemen. Under the People's Partnership Government led by Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, we had introduced the concept of a maritime security wall. And recently, our political leader spoke about a security dome, similar to what we see in Israel with the Iron Dome of security, and what we see closer to our shores in Anguilla and in Aruba, where they also suffered from porous borders. Yet we have a Prime Minister who comes to this nation on a platform making fun of the leader of the political leader, Mrs. Kamala Prasad-Bissessar, speaking about dome builders, dome mechanics, dome janitors. Well, I would like to say to the Prime Minister today that the national security of our nation is not a joke. It is not a joking matter. And two vessels alone will not secure our borders. Ladies and gentlemen, with our porous borders, Venezuelans come as they want and they leave as they want, while many of our citizens are locked in and many of our citizens are locked out of our country. Through the PNM's own incompetence, ladies and gentlemen, they have decided to purchase, without the Coast Guard requesting it, two shiny new vessels. The national security of Trinidad and Tobago has to be greater than a mere purchase of two hostile vessels and must be the result of a combined arms operation, which include coastal radar to detect vessels, large ships at sea to constantly patrol our oceans, interceptors vessels to intercept fast-moving vessels that come close to our shores. And all of this watched by an air surveillance network and manned by foot patrol and vehicle patrol on land. This is what Mrs. Prasad-Bissessar spoke about in terms of a security dome, not dome builders and not a metal structure. However, this government, instead of beefing up our air unit, has decimated our air power. When the People's Partnership demitted office, there were 2 fixed-wing C-26 aircraft and 10 helicopters available to national security, 2 of which were leased, and at least 8 of these helicopters were fully operational, ladies and gentlemen. As of today, under this PNM administration, we have a mere 2 helicopters, if that much, fully operational today. The PNM took the decision to ground 4 AW-139 helicopters that the Patrick Manning administration contracted but was delivered under the People's Partnership government. So here we have $314 million wasted by this PNM government. And from a fleet of helicopters where at least 7 were equipped with best-in-class surveillance equipment, we now have 0 good surveillance equipment on any of these helicopters. Ladies and gentlemen, as I close, in Trinidad and Tobago, I have showed you that we have the right pieces for national security, like a jigsaw puzzle. We have the right pieces, if put together correctly, to secure our borders, to secure our nation. But what the government has done is take this box of jigsaw and their pieces, thrown it up in the air, and hope that it lands in one puzzle. This government has failed to secure our borders, they have failed to secure our nation, and they have failed to resource the national security element of Trinidad and Tobago. And with those 3 words, I now pass over to my colleague, Senator Anil Roberts.
Thank you, Senator Lyder. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago. Good Sunday morning. Vaccination is life. Vaccination wins the war against the pandemic. The world knew since December 2019, when this virus appeared in Wuhan, China, that to come out of it as it spread across the globe, coming from east to west, that herd immunity and vaccination, the scientists will have to run the day to move the place forward and to allow our economies to survive, thrive, and move up. We knew across the globe that vaccinations will be the key. Small countries, small island nations had a comparative advantage because with small populations, herd immunity could be arrived at very quickly, very fast because of your small size. Yet we in Trinidad and Tobago stand at the cusp of grave danger, death, destruction, incompetence, and we stand at a paltry 11% of fully vaccinated people, while we are 8 months, nearly 8 months into the vaccination drive globally. Over 1 billion vaccines have been put into the arms of human beings, and we in Trinidad and Tobago have only reached 11% full vaccination and 18% single jab. Why is this? Why does this incompetence abound in Trinidad and Tobago? We knew the solution. Keith Rowley knew what had to be done. And yet all we can hear day in, day out is excuse after excuse after excuse. Rowley is tardy with the vaccinations. It's similar to in Trinidad and Tobago. We all know when we have carnival, unlike during a pandemic, without vaccinations, with exemption process and borders that were closed in the airport and the legal, legitimate borders, while the entire coastline was porous and open to illegal immigrants. Keith Rowley and his government are so late and so incompetent It's like you know that you're going to play mass in Tribe and Bliss and they will sell out their costumes by August. But you reach in January the next year to purchase a costume for your wife. You may know that the doubles man selling out at 9 a.m. But Keith Rowley and his government reach at 9:30 to buy doubles when they know it's sell out. Or it reminds me of 2007, Shivnarine Chandrapal in the World Cup 2007, West Indies chasing a massive target against Sri Lanka of 301. And he comes in to bat and the run rate required was 7.65. And he goes and he choke ball and he choke ball and he choke ball and refused to hit an aggressive shot. And the rate just kept climbing till it reached 16 per over and the game was lost because of lack of decision making, lack of action, incompetence, and inability to solve a problem. We are in a vaccination vacuum in Trinidad and Tobago, and our economy is suffering, our people are suffering, and as I speak, we could be approaching 1,000 dead citizens. Let's pause for a moment and soak that in. 1,000 citizens dead from COVID-19 in this pandemic. The media may obfuscate and try to put it on page 9, hide it on page 16, pretend that Keith Rowley makes sense every time he gets up and blabs his mouth. But 1,000 citizens are dead. 800 of those dead in the last 2 months alone. The world has jabbed over 1 billion people. We are being fed a daily diet of lies, deceit, obfuscation, and total and complete incompetence. The latest lie, which has confused me as a senator and a member of the United National Congress and our party as a whole, is we cannot understand. Keith Christopher Rowley over the last few days has made statements stating that he had 3 documents to sign with the United States of America in order to receive donated vaccines. And of those 3 documents, 1 was signed by Trinidad and Tobago already with the United States. And that was a confidentiality agreement, he said, and I quote from the Guardian newspaper 2 days ago. Keith Christopher Rowley said, Trinidad and Tobago has signed a confidentiality agreement with the United States, even as it is still negotiating for a gift of COVID-19 vaccines, said Prime Minister Keith Christopher Rowley. But I could not understand because I had listened to President Joe Biden, the United States of America president, who stated categorically on June 10th, and I quote, "Let me be clear," said President Joe Biden, "as with the 80 million vaccines we previously announced, the United States is providing these 500 million doses with no strings attached." Let me say again, with no strings attached. We're doing this to save lives, to end the pandemic. That's it. Period. President Joe Biden. He also said yesterday, while addressing a Zoom conference of the APEC countries, the Asian Pacific Conference, with Prime Minister of New Zealand and Korea and so on, he again reiterated that these vaccination donations come with no strings attached, no price. They are doing it not for any favors, any investment, any foreign direct investment, any purchases of US-made goods and services, that the United States of America is trying to save the planet and help those most in need. So who is telling the truth? If President Joe Biden is saying no strings attached, no prices, no confidentiality, what is Keith Rowley telling us in Trinidad and Tobago? That his government signed a confidentiality agreement with the United States of America? While Keith Rowley spoke yesterday, and to the media, I ask you all, Vaccination is life. Herd immunity is science. We need to get a specific number so that we can operate, so that we could create jobs, so that we could attract foreign direct investment. We can open back our economy. People could feed their families. It's very simple. It's simple mathematics. 75% herd immunity. Let's go. Keith Rowley talks yesterday and says, and I quote, "We might be, if we get some Pfizer, maybe we may get it in August. It might happen, and if it happens, we will give it to the students." Does that sound like a prime minister who knows what he's doing? Does that sound like a prime minister who understands that vaccination, herd immunity, science, jabs is the key to critical action to save Trinidad and Tobago from the devastation that we are now facing? If, might, maybe, when. Our people are dying, and the leader of this country can say without any certainty, no definition, no assuredness, no certainty when we will be getting, what we will be getting. He has boasted that he went without sleep, and Keith Rowley was leading the charge to get U.S. donations, or a piece of a portion of the U.S. donations globally for us here in Trinidad and Tobago, and he has failed so to do. We have not received any. So if this is his best, if this is him working without sleep, then we need to let him take a rest and put Kamala Persad-Bissessar and the United National Congress to handle the situation, because we are in grave danger. Keith Christopher Rowley said he spoke to Vice President Kamala Harris. He spoke with different congresswomen and people. Keith Christopher Rowley pays a PNM lobbyist 1.2 million US for the last 6 years. And we have gotten no vaccines other than the 400 doses that came in secretly into the country. Yet other leaders, while Keith Rowley is begging, asking, pleading, and saying might, maybe, and maybe in August, no timeline, other leaders have received life-saving jabs, Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson from the United States of America, Taiwan, 2.5 million. Their leader has received, while Rowley begs, pleads, and hopes. Peru, Haiti, Brazil, Costa Rica, Mexico, Canada, El Salvador, Honduras, Bolivia, Colombia, Egypt, Vietnam, Philippines, India have all received vaccines from the United States of America. Trinidad and Tobago has not received. Rowley is a failure, total, complete failure. Afghanistan, Fiji, Pakistan, Moldova, Malaysia, Ecuador, Paraguay, Panama, Dominican Republic, Korea, Jordan, Ukraine have received life-saving vaccines from the U.S. donation. Trinidad and Tobago has not. Rowley is a complete failure. The Moderna, Pfizer, Johnson & Johnson that the U.S. is giving, the so-called Rolls-Royce of vaccinations, according to Rowley, as he says critically, these vaccines also have some sort of efficacy against the Delta variant that is ravaging the world right now, and the Brazilian variant that is ravaging Trinidad and Tobago. Out of 580 million jabs that the United States of America is donated, Keith Rowley and Trinidad and Tobago, we have received only 400 jabs secretively under a letter of to whom it may concern that was seized by customs agents at the airport and then released. We have 1,000 dead. There is a case of criminal negligence being applied to the incompetence, the delay, the lies, the deceit of Keith Christopher Rowley. And United National Congress calls for a commission of inquiry because these 1,000 dead that we could reach either by today as I'm speaking or by tomorrow as we can eat doubles. 1,000 citizens will not have the privilege to go buy their doubles man or doubles woman and buy with slide pepper tomorrow because they have died due to the incompetence and mismanagement of Keith Rowley. This has occurred over 800 deaths during 72 days of total lockdown, 64 days of state of emergency, and over 800 citizens have died. A state of emergency and lockdown is the most draconian, drastic measures to try to stop spread. Yes, yet yesterday, 232 positive cases and 8 citizens dead. Economy dead. Businesses dead. Job market dead. Tourism dead. Sport and culture dead. People are needy, not greedy. The perfect storm of incompetence, lack of leadership, and arrogance with lies is epitomized by Keith Rowley, his leadership style, and his incompetent cabinet. We have seen this pattern before. Rowley's PNM, they create a crisis through bad decisions, then swoop in trying to come with some sort of solution, but somehow the solution has NDAs, secret agreements, confidentiality, and your money is spent without transparency nor accountability. That is the Rowley method. That is the plan: to procure without procurement, to gut procurement, to create an emergency, make the population desperate, and then do what they want with your money without answering to the opposition and to the people about the prices, the negotiations, the procurement, the process. Whether you look at the exemption process, the ferries, the sea bridge, the same ferries that included the cutlass vessels that came, the pandemic expenditure, 23 billion without any explanation, talking about VAT refunds and consolidated fund, and the Minister of Finance saying once he takes the money out of your HSF, he could spend it as he feels like, yet people are hungry, hampers are limited, and we only seeing a KFC man delivering hampers now to Keith Rowley's office. The people have never seen Christopher Rowley in his constituency office, but they saw a Starbucks truck. Rowley says, if, maybe, hope, might, in the future we'll get some Pfizer, and if we get the Pfizer, we will give it to the school children. But he says if we get it in August, if might, maybe, might, we negotiating, we don't know. If we get it in August, the school children could go to school in September. Rowley has been around this pandemic fight and does not even understand that Pfizer is a 2-dose vaccine. You take it once, and then between 8 and 12 weeks, you have to take the second jab. After you take the second jab, 2 weeks after that, which would put it at 14 weeks, your body will start to create the antibodies, and then our children will be safe. So if maybe the vaccines might maybe come negotiated, if it reach in August, the children can't go to school till end of November. This man lies, obfuscates, and does not understand science. What about the 351,000 vaccines that were available in late February, early March? If we had received those, couldn't our children have received those vaccines? And then school would have been able to restart in end of April, early May. And we would not have lost 8 months of schooling. What is the opportunity cost to our children of losing all of that schooling? Was it out of the 400 secret doses of Pfizer that came in surreptitiously? Did Keith Rowley give that to our children, since he is so caring and in love and caring about our children, even though 46,690 of them have not logged on in 17 months for school, and that for generations to come there would be an education deficit which would lead to a lack of income earning over decades? Will those 46,690 children who did not get laptops because Rowley stopped Kamala Prasad-Bissessa's laptop program and there were no devices, and in 17 months the government has only procured 4,000 devices while depending on private sector to donate 22,000, when there's still a deficit of 37,690 children without devices? When and if maybe might in August the Pfizer vaccine reaches, would these poorer children be given preference to get those 12 to 18, to get those shots so that they could go into school in order to minimize or mitigate against the loss of education that they have suffered? Has that been thought of by Keith Rowley? Does he care about poor people, children? Was there any confidentiality agreement with the secret doses of 400 Pfizer that landed in the airport and was seized by customs and they had to call the head of the pharmacy board? Did they sign a confidentiality agreement with the United States for that? So who is telling the truth? President Biden says, no strings attached. I repeat, no strings attached. And Keith Christopher Rowley, our Prime Minister, who always tells us the truth, email gate, land date, Delcy gate, vaccine gate, always tells us the truth, never tells fibs. Who is telling the truth in this case? Joe Biden or Keith Christopher Rowley? You decide. And to the media, please ask Keith Christopher Rowley to provide you with a copy of the confidentiality agreement that he signed with the U.S. government, because I have checked, and all those countries I called before, Taiwan, Paraguay, Colombia, Brazil, Mexico, Canada, nobody, Haiti, nobody had to sign any confidentiality agreement. Rowley's lobbyists paid 1.2 million US per year for 6 years, 7.2 million US to lobby the US government for action, for investment, and in the fight for our lives. The PNM lobbyists that was paid $50 million over the last 6 years, TT, was only able to get us 400 doses of Pfizer that come in late at night without C82 form. 50 million TT dollars for a lobbyist who's on the top floor because they're not in the lobby. They've not been able to procure anything. What is the value of that investment? If you want Pfizer, Rowley says, as he attacks the citizens, you will wait. All of a sudden, if we want to live and we can research and find out and see what's best for us and rank vaccines because we know we want to take the best, we want to take care of ourselves and our family, Rowley talks down to us. He said, if you all feel you want Pfizer, you got to wait. If you don't want that, you have to take what you get, says Rowley. This is how a leader talks to his citizens as we are dying. Some feel Pfizer is the Rolls Royce of vaccines. Not some feel. We are learning, we are reading, we are seeing the efficacy, we are learning about the Delta variant. We are trying to protect our lives. We don't want to become one of the 1,000 citizens that have died under your watch, Keith Rowley. Without Sinopharm, we would be in trouble, says Keith Christopher Rowley. So we're not in trouble now, Keithos? Keith Christopher Rowley, our country is not in trouble now? 1,000 deaths. Yesterday, 252 positive cases, 8 deaths. Delta variant could be here. We don't know what testing is going on. The economy is in shambles. Over 200,000 people lost jobs. We have over 170,000 illegal immigrants here. Some are choosing to return because we are in such pain and devastation here that people prefer to go back home. At least they love their country and they'll be oppressed by another drug trafficking narco-terrorist indicted leader, Maduro, who is oppressing them over there. They are leaving Trinidad and Tobago, our sweet country, to go back to pain, torture, hunger, and starvation. Rowley's vaccine vacuum was created by negligence, incompetence, delay, waiting for a phantom WHO approval that other countries did not necessitate. They moved them, they did their own science, they did their own approvals, they got going to get us vaccinated. We are a small country and we are dead last. We are nowhere near herd immunity. There's been no communication education program. After the first 40% of people who will be willing to go and take vaccine, there's a 30% of people who are confused. They don't know what to do. They don't know if to take. What are the dangers? What are the risks? And the government has not educated the people, but they come with a big stick now to say, if you don't, we will drop the big stick on you. Is that how an enlightened population is to be led? By a bully? Rowley said no begging, but now he's begging and don't know he's begging, but he might wish maybe if August Where the 800,000 jabs that the media was boasting about? Rowley said 7 weeks ago that we'll get 800,000 Johnson & Johnson jabs from Africa. Africa desperate for vaccines. They're dying all over the place, riots and looting. And Rowley want to take vaccine from a place that need it as bad as us. But where are they? The media celebrated because Rowley comes and just talks. Other countries, you have to come with definitive plans, date, factors, when it will come, how many it come, when it landed, where it's good. We don't operate like that. We talk on VAPs and allow Rowley to just talk about if, might, maybe, and he hopes. The UNC, the United National Congress, is stating that we believe there is a case to be made against Keith Christopher Rowley and his government for criminal negligence over the deaths of nearly 1,000 citizens, over the collapse of the economy, loss of jobs and devastation that is taking place in Trinidad and Tobago. Through the lack of foresight, the bad decisions, the giving up of 351,000 Pfizer vaccinations, the waiting for WHO approvals for Sinopharm, and not giving us a cocktail and a medley of choices. We are being shut down, locked down, broke down, and dead down. And we are saying it has been negligent, and we're calling for a commission of inquiry into each and every death, each and every job loss, each and every business that has shut down. Tomorrow, as I wrap up, I want you each and every one to enjoy your doubles tomorrow. As you savor the experience, remember whose incompetence, poor leadership, and poor decisions and oppressive nature denied you the right to eat your doubles for the last 72 days. Doubles that show you and make you feel proud to be Trinbagonian. All races, ethnicities, creeds, male, female, or young, old, we can eat and feel like Trinbagonians tomorrow. Do not celebrate because we get to eat doubles. Think as you savor the taste and it melts in your mouth and the pepper stings a succulent taste in your nostrils. As that occurs, remember that it is Keith Christopher Rowley, an oppressor, an incompetent leader, the worst prime minister in the history of the Caribbean and Commonwealth, who has made you, who has denied you the right to eat your doubles, to go to your beaches, to work, to save your businesses, to pay your bills without the protection of the parliament. People and banks are still making profit. You're paying your credit card bills. Your phones are being cut off because of lack of payment of bills. No protection, no love, no care from an oppressor. So as you enjoy your doubles, think about that, because elections have consequences. Kamla Prasad Bisesa will not say doubles is not more special than anything else. Doubles is us. Doubles is Trinidad and Tobago. Doubles is creativity. It's brilliance. It's hard work. It's discipline. We respect our citizens. We respect and we are patriotic. And therefore, we would never make such a ridiculous statement. Anybody who attacks what belongs to us and comes from us does not understand us. So elections have consequences. As you eat your doubles tomorrow, remember the man who oppressed your taste buds. God bless. Have an enjoyable Sunday. And join us next week for another press conference from the United National Congress, where we will show you the difference between a cabinet that is incompetent, arrogant, and lacks creativity to one that has plans for the future to bring us out of this grave situation. Goodbye. God bless.